If you're looking for a podcast that packs in sound property advice, as well as offering you an insight into making the world of property effective and ultimately work for you, you're in the right place. Hosted by Arsh the original property rebel. He's written an Amazon bestseller, created the Property Investor app, the UK's first, and is an experienced property mentor. More importantly, he talks the talk and walks the walk.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Property Rebel with your host Arsh. In today's episode, we're going to be covering the topic of what's the best way of managing your HMO. Now, I'm not really going to talk about whether it's self-managed, whether it's managed, self-managed, and the reason being is that we can all go out and find letting agents. Now, with all my properties, what I do, I have a specific and an individual tip which I'm going to share with you today. Before we go on to that, I want to say a quick hello to all new subscribers, all new listeners. Hopefully you're finding the podcast of great use and you're getting some golden nuggets. I actually listened back to one of my podcasts the other day whilst I was in the car. My daughter actually clicked onto it. And without blowing smoke up my own backside, I actually thought, wow, I actually give away quite a lot of content and quite a lot of information. So I'm hoping you really take this on board and you're making notes of it. More importantly, you're implementing it into your property business. So let's get moving forward. So as we know, HMOs can be quite management intensive. If you're self-managing, you're going to have to deal with putting the adverts up, taking the calls, potentially doing the viewings, meeting the tenants, arranging the paperwork and everything that goes around it, then the management, the maintenance and everything. And it can become quite tiresome. And I've been doing this for over 19 years and it actually ground me down, if I'm honest. And I thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. Well, with all my properties, I actually grew my own letting agency so that we could now manage that. But I don't give the letting agency the full control of the HMOs because I've got a specific tip which I'm going to share with you. So I'll use a property specifically as an example today. So I've got a 23-bed HMO in West Bromwich, close to West Bromwich Albion football ground. And when I took that on, I started to traditionally self-manage it, which meant that I was doing all the adverts, doing all the viewings, etc. And I felt like I was working too hard, or if I want to put it in a blunt way, I thought I was a busy fool. I was going from Wolverhampton to West Bromwich approximately half an hour. By the time I got there, by the time I spent half an hour with the tenant, by the time I came back, that's an hour and a half, which when you look at it from that point of view, it's quite a large chunk of your day. And sometimes the tenant would turn up, sometimes they wouldn't. And sometimes the tenant liked the room, sometimes they didn't. And I thought, okay, there's got to be a better way. So for the last few years, I think for the last 3-4 years, I've not done anything on that property. And when I say not done anything, I'm going to share a tip with you. So I'm going to give you an evolution of time as to what's happened with this HMO. I bought it back in 2006. I turned it from care home into HMO, got it running as a 17-bed HMO. And one of the first things that I did is that when I call it recruiting. When I started recruiting tenants for this property, the first thing that I did, I was looking for someone responsible who would live in the largest room, who would then become what I would consider a head tenant, or if you want it in a simpler form, a caretaker for the building. Now, my reason for this was that I didn't really want to be the point of contact for 17 tenants and having to go around collect 17 lots of rent and deal with all the kinds of issues that come with 17-bed HMO at the time. So when I took the property on and I converted it into a 17-bed HMO, I found this guy, and believe it or not, this guy actually came from a homeless shelter. So there was quite a few doubts as to is this going to work? Is there going to be some damage? Is there going to be some theft? Can I leave this guy with money, etc.? So it became an evolution of responsibility as well. So this guy, Paul, he moved into a property. He had the largest room and he liked to think himself as the king of the castle. I've got no issue with that. I've got no issue with that. I wanted him to treat it as his home. I wanted him to create a sense of community within the accommodation, so that everyone knew that he was kind of the person to go to if there was any issues. So I said to Paul, is it okay if, when a tenant comes, you assist me with showing them around? So I was still going around, I was doing the adverts. They would call me. I would then arrange a viewing where I'd meet them. Paul would also meet them. It's really important that Paul met them, because remember, Paul is a person that's got to live with these people. So I wanted to make sure that Paul was happy with them as well, and that everyone was communicating on the same level. Everyone was on the same page. And that worked really well. Then I gave Paul some more responsibility. Now, in this 17-bed HMO at the time, all the tenants were on benefits. Now, if we think of a maths point of view, the rent on a room is £100 a week. And back then it was called housing benefit or local housing allowance. So 2006, it was housing benefit. This is where the government would pay you approximately 80 to 85% of the rental income. So if the rent is £100 a week, they would give you £80 a week, which meant that there was a top up of £20 a week. And this £20 a week had to come out the tenant's social benefits. So whether they're claiming job seekers allowance, income support, disability living allowance, whatever benefit they were claiming, their living allowances, they would pay Paul £20 a week. But because they got paid fortnightly, they would then pay Paul £40 a fortnight. So I said to Paul, and just bear in mind that every tenant gets paid on a different day. So some will get paid Monday, Tuesday. You can get paid between Monday and Saturday. No one gets paid on a Sunday. So near enough midnight of that day, they will get paid. So I kind of understood that system. I was still looking after the housing benefit side. So my office would still do the housing benefit forms for the tenant. We would still collect the housing benefit in office. Now, Paul would be responsible for collecting £20 top-ups. I gave him a manual paper diary. We had still a manual paper diary in the office. So I knew that on Monday, room 1 or flat 1, depending on what you want to call it, they were due £40. On Tuesday, there may have been 3 people. So room 4, room 7, room 9, and you get the gist. Wednesday, we had a few more people. But throughout that fortnight, we should have collected 17 lots of £40. So that was my kind of key indicator, shall we call it. If we hadn't have collected, so I'm just going to get my calculator out here. So if we hadn't collected 17 times £40, if we hadn't collected £680 that fortnight, I would start to question what's gone on. So I kept an eye on this. So there was still measures in place to make sure that money wasn't going missing. And to be fair, it was quite easy to notice. So if you break it down into weeks, it would have been £320 a week or £640 a fortnight. Remember, some people probably got paid this week, some people probably got paid next week. All the payments vary. So it's really important that you understand when people get paid. Even with benefit tenants today, it's really important to understand when people get paid. So I had a diary, Paul had a diary, and the office had a diary. So every day I would check in with Paul and say, Paul, we do know that today room 1's due, room 9's due, room 7's due, etc. And he goes, yeah, Arsh, okay, I've collected room 1, I've collected room 9, and I've collected room 17. So in my diary, I would tick them off and say, Paul's got it, Paul's got it, Paul's got it. Or just something like paid, paid, paid. And so probably once a week or twice a week, I would go and see Paul and I would collect that money off him. So this was part of the earlier stages. It's evolved massively from here. And so I would go and collect that money off Paul, count it, make sure everything is fine. And now Paul would get paid, or we did 2 ways. Sometimes he wanted his £40 deducted, or so that in essence he was living rent-free because the council were paying his rent, the £80, and we didn't charge him the top-up, and sometimes we'd pay him a little bit extra for a little additional works that he had done. So if a tenant had an issue and they came to see him, or if the fire alarm had gone off. So just so that you know, with a head tenant in place, it's really important that they understand how the fire alarm goes, how the fire alarm operates, because if there is a scenario where the fire alarm goes off, and let's say it's 2 o'clock in the morning, Do you want to be called out to the property, or would you prefer that the head tenant deals with it, goes around, makes sure that the property is in good working order, there's no real damage? If there's obviously smoke damage, he would then call me and say, Arsh, we've got a problem, can you come over here? Touch wood, we've not had that issue so far. But if there's a false alarm, let's say that someone was burning toast, or someone was cooking something, then obviously he would literally reset the alarm, and as a result of that, he would then just say, oh yeah, and the next, he wouldn't really call me about it in the evening. He would call me next day and say, oh, okay, just so you know, we had a false alarm. I would log it in our fire alarm log so that we know that there was a incident, but it was dealt with. And that's what you have to do for HMO management control, shall we call it. And that was kind of straightforward. Now, so he collected the rents, which was great. So we evolved this slightly more. So slowly but surely, we start to give him more responsibility. Now that we know that he could manage a little bit of money, we started to give him a bit more responsibility. So instead of me collecting the money now, I gave him a copy of my paying book. So that instead of me going to collect it now, he would go and put it in my Lloyds Bank. And the Lloyds Bank was approximately a 5-minute walk from the house, which meant that it saved me pretty much an hour going back and forth every week. I still went an hour every week, if I'm honest, just to go and keep an eye on the property. And bear in mind, at this point, I was still taking the calls and I was still doing the viewings. So it evolved that I gave them a paying book, so they started paying the rent into the bank. Next thing that we started to do, slowly but surely, is now Paul unfortunately moved out, I think back in 2009, 2010. So he's been there approximately 3 to 4 years. And believe it or not, he actually met a lady in the HMO and he ended up moving in with her into a 1-bedroom flat. Unfortunately, I did not have a 1-bedroom flat at the time. Otherwise, I would have retained them as a tenant. So they found love. So we could call it HMO Love Island if you want. So we moved on. Now I found another tenant. Now another person in the property that was living in another room. He lived in room 1 at the time. Now the largest room is room 13. Now Martin in room 1, I think he said, Arsh, he goes, to be fair, now that Paul's moved out, do you mind if I move into that room? I said, I've got no issues with that. Yeah, Martin's been there quite a while, almost from the start as well. He saw what Paul's responsibilities were. Martin was quite a pleasant guy. Everyone got on with him. I thought, okay, let's see how this evolves. And we did the whole process again. Now, Martin, believe it or not, is still with me today. He's been the best tenant we've ever had. Now, all the tenants like him, all the tenants liaise with him, all the tenants communicate with him. And what happens is with regards to now, I've evolved this system massively with Martin to the point where Martin collects the rent. He now puts it in the bank. Now, what I've done with Martin is that with all my HMOs, I've got a master key. I don't give Martin the master key, but any room which is empty, he has a key to. So I evolved it so that I was taking the phone calls and I then was arranging the viewing with Martin so that I would not go and view the property. The tenant or the prospective tenant would meet Martin. Martin would show them around the property. Martin would probably take them back to his flat, give them a cup of coffee, have a chat with them. And then Martin would call me and say, Arsh, this guy seems okay. I think we can get on with him. Do you want to, he likes the room. We like him. Do you think it's now worth you coming to have a chat? And then I would only really meet him just to say a yes or no to him. If I liked him, he would move in. The office would then do his paperwork. It's evolved even further. Now, instead of, remember, I was still taking the calls, I was still placing the adverts and I was still taking the calls. Now, I've placed the adverts, but I've diverted all the calls to Martin. Martin now takes all the calls for this HMO, which means that he speaks to them, he understands. I've given him a checklist of all the questions he should be asking so that he gets to understand who they are, how old they are, what they're doing for work. Are they working there on benefits or are they students? If they're on benefits, what kind of benefits they're on? If they're working, what kind of work do they do? How do they get paid? Where are they living at the moment? What's the reason for them leaving? Is there any form of criminal record? Is there any kind of history that we need to know about? These are some of the questions that I get Martin to ask. We've got a whole checklist. And Martin, to be fair to him, he's got it down to a T because all the tenants that he kind of screens now, I can't really pick a fault with them. There's probably one that I saw and I thought, you know what, Mark, he's not for me. But other than that, Martin literally checks the tenants for me. Checks the tenants, so he takes the calls, he arranges the viewing, he conducts the viewing. After the viewing, he says, Arsh, okay, I think I like this guy. Are you ready to meet this guy? This guy's got the deposit, he's got all his paperwork, he's got everything. So he checks all his paperwork, make sure that everything's in order. I've bought Martin a laptop, I've bought Martin a printer, and so that in his room, he's actually created himself a little office. If my office needed to communicate or send Martin, let's say, a tenancy agreement for this new tenant to sign whilst he's there, we can email it to him. He can print it off immediately. He's got Wi-Fi, which I pay for. So the reason why I don't mind paying for his Wi-Fi, the reason why I don't mind paying for his printer and his computer, it's an old laptop, it's a second-hand laptop, it's a second-hand printer. So even if he was to disappear with them tomorrow, I'm not really going to feel that worried with regards to broadband. I can cancel it tomorrow. So I'm trying to make Martin as comfortable as possible, because let's face it, he's been with me the best part nearly 20 years, oh, not 20 years, about 15 years now. And he's been golden. He does all my viewings, he collects my rent, he does all my viewings, he takes all my phone calls, conducts everything, he fills the property for me. If there's, just so you know, we've got a cleaner that comes in the building, he goes around with the cleaner, makes sure that there's no issues, if there's any maintenance issues, he's got the phone numbers to my maintenance guys. And he calls them and say, Neil, so one of my maintenance guys is called Neil, he goes, Neil, okay, we've got a leaky tap, or we've got a broken toilet, or this flat says that we've got this, can you come round here? Neil would literally just liaise with me if there's an issue, but if it's a small issue, he'll go and deal with it. Martin liaises with them and gets that all done. So from that point of view, it has become completely hands-off. You know, I probably still go there once a week just to check with Martin. Again, Martin's got a girlfriend that's in the building, her name's Elaine, and they've been fantastic. Between them, they've been fantastic, and it works extremely well. I treat them extremely well because I want them to be there, you know, hopefully touch wood for life, but they've been there long enough and it works really, really well. Now, this is a tip that I'm giving to you guys. Get yourself in your HMO a head tenant. If you don't want to create a head tenant, or you don't want someone to have that kind of level of responsibility, worst case scenario, you should be creating a mini WhatsApp group for your HMO so that everyone is in there. So if there's someone that's got an issue, they put it into the WhatsApp group. So everyone knows what's going on. Everyone can communicate with each other freely. The one thing I will say is that with WhatsApp groups and sharing people's phone numbers under GDPR, you need to make sure that everyone's given consent for you to give that information because you are putting it out publicly. So that's one thing I would say. I have not got a WhatsApp group for that which is now 23-bed HMO, purely because Martin is in full control. If I'm honest, I don't want to be in contact with 23 tenants. The moment that they know that I'm in the WhatsApp group, they'll bypass Martin and they'll all come directly to me. That's naturally what happens. If I go into the building once a week, you'll see that naturally people will come and have a chat with me, and that's great. Don't mind having a chat, but if they've got any issues, I always say to them, guys, would you mind just contacting Martin with it? And Martin's got the contact details for Neil and Nav and, you know, Amos and all the other people who are part of our power team, electricians, plumbers, you know, maintenance guys, etc. And Martin will get it dealt with probably quicker than I will, if I'm honest, just purely because sometimes things go in one ear out the other, whereas with Martin, that's his dedicated role. Martin gets, you know, looked after very well. And as a result of that, that's definitely something that I suggest that you all get for a HMO, whether it be something as small as a 4-bed, going right up to a 40-bed HMO. And we've got a larger 40-bed HMO, and we've done exactly the same. Just, you've got to make sure that you don't give the person from the outset too much responsibility. Just ease them in, give them a task, see how they perform with that, let them run with that task for a couple of months. It's pretty much like having an employee. Give them a certain responsibility, see how that works. Does it work well with them? Yes or no? If no, then don't worry. Okay, you won't go any further. If it works well, give them a little bit more. Give them a little bit more. See how much they can handle, see how much they can manage. And believe it or not, if you give people that level, they will learn to fly with it. So there you have it, guys. There's a great tip, a great way to manage your HMOs where you're still in control, but you've kind of delegated some of the roles out to someone, but still within your team, shall we call it. As always, if you've liked this episode, please feel free to listen to all the other episodes that we've got on the Property Rebel. You can find them on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast and Stitcher. More importantly, if you like more free content, I give away when I say giveaway, I release a video on YouTube every Thursday at 4 p.m. So all you got to do is go to YouTube, search for me. My name's Arsh Ilahi. And you'll see that I've got hundreds of videos on YouTube on all different kinds of property strategies. So hopefully that's something that's going to be of interest to you. More importantly, as you may know, I'm the founder of the UK's first property investment marketplace app. So it's called Property Investor. It very simply called Property Investor. And what we do, we showcase all kinds of deals all over the UK. So these may be below market value deals, rent to rent deals, lease option deals, blocks of flats, service accommodation, development opportunities. These are just to name a few. So if you like the thought of that, you're looking for your next deal or potentially looking to sell your next deal, why don't you download the app? You can go to propertyinvestorapp.co.uk, or you can go to App Store, whether it be Android or Apple devices, and type in Property Investor. So go to the App Store, type in Property Investor. Takes approximately 2 minutes to register, to download, register, and you get to see all the information there. It's completely free for you to do that. So there you have it, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed the session. Hopefully you've taken away a load of notes, lots of information there. And as always, if you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out. And I look forward to speaking to you all very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
The large majority of people make a positive change if they take immediate action. So act now. Download the Property Investor app and join Arsh on his social media channels to excel your property journey.